Hello and welcome to Wine Blast, and more specifically to our Season 7 grand finale. And it's a really enjoyable one because we're talking wine travel. Getting away from it all, tasting beautiful wine in great places with fabulous food and fun people, which is, I hope, all of our happy place in the Wine Blast community.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, just drinking wine is a form of vicarious travel. The best wines transport you to a time and a place like few other comestibles can. But, in this episode, we're talking actual wine travel, getting out into the wilds of the wine world, travelling with a corkscrew rather than a compass, as Gerard Bertrand so memorably said in our recent Paydoc IGP episode. Here's a taster of what's coming up.
Be open-minded. Be prepared to like that rosé, having avowed all your life you hate rosé. Be prepared to try something completely different. Generally, make friends with your spittoon. I think a lot of people are a bit wary about spitting in public. So if you really are worried about that, sit in your bath at home and try and aim for the taps.
Aim for the taps. Wise words there from Cindy Marie Harvey, who leads tours as part of her Love Wine Food business and is a proper wine travel guru with decades of experience. And she's who will be mining for information in this programme. Plus, we'll be throwing our own 2 cents into the pot as ever, and we'll share an insider steer from an anonymous source at the kind of wine producer everyone wants to visit.
Oh, Cloak and Dagger. Anonymous sources. As long as it's not ketchup. Think of this show as your handy podcast guide to wine travel. It's a fabulous thing to do. We can't recommend it highly enough. It's also a booming sector, projected to generate more than $138 billion by 2033, according to data from Persistent Market Research, with predicted growth in the US, for example, of nearly 13% annually from 2026 to 2033.
Talk to wine producers beleaguered by climate change and plummeting consumption, and many believe that wine tourism is one of the few bright spots on the horizon. French wine producer Morgane Le Breton said in our Paydoc pod, wine tourism is going to save the industry. It's clearly a subject that's generating a lot of interest. So we're going to be looking into it over a number of programmes, with this being the first. After this, we're going to focus in on individual countries and regions in future episodes.
Yeah, and actually part of the reason we're covering this subject is down to you, our lovely listeners. This, for example, was a message from listener Ian Lindsay.
Hello, Susie and Peter. I'm a big fan of the pod. I'd love to hear an episode focused on wine travel. We all listen to Wine Blast because we love hearing about regions, producers and great bottles. A mix of wine education and market intelligence, if you will. But actually turning up at the cellar door and getting the most out of the experience is not always as easy as it seems. How do you plan a great wine trip? What are the practical do's and don'ts? When are the best seasons to go? What's the best way to meet producers respectfully, taste well, and travel sustainably? You've travelled the wine world more than most. So, an episode that gives Wine Blast listeners practical guidance, insider tips, and inspiring ideas for their next wine adventure would be pure gold.
Now I'm just thinking of gold taps. I'm not exactly sure why. But thank you, Ian, for such an excellent idea. Your wish is our command. And so this is exactly what we're going to try to do in this show. Focus on helpful, practical tips as well as insider ideas for wine adventures.
Indeed. But just before we get started, there's a few things we need to say on the general Wine Blast front.
Yep, there are indeed.
First and foremost, there's a number to choose from. Before we launch into season 8, we will be having a brand refresh.
How exciting.
That doesn't mean we'll just be drinking lots of cool white wine or chillable reds. It's actually a proper professional thing. We can maybe do 2 at the same time. So if you notice our logo or podcast tile looking a bit different, please don't be perturbed. It's a good thing. It's still us. It's still Wine Blast. Still Susie and Peter. We may just look a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a massive change,
No,
is
it's
it?
not.
But it is a change, both for Wine Blast and Wine Blast Plus. And we say this because we know it can be a bit weird when podcast branding or logos or tiles change, even subtly. And, you get so used to finding the image you're used to that when it changes, it can be a bit disconcerting. But the main thing is, we hope you like it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It's all in the interests of continuous improvement. And, of course, the ultimate aim of total world domination by Wine Blast eventually.
Maybe wine world domination.
On which note, we'll also be republishing short taster episodes of our archived seasons between the end of season 7, i.e. after this show, and the start of season 8.
Yep, so you'll see those popping up in the free feed. Wine Blast Plus subscribers, of course, already have full access to our entire archive back to season 1. So these tasters won't appear in the Wine Blast Plus feeds. Either way, it's a good incentive to go back and check out what are some intriguing time capsules from 5 or 6 years ago. And if you do want full access, just sign up to Wine Blast Plus at wineblast.co.uk.
Yeah, link in the show notes as ever. And this leads neatly onto our final announcement, which is good news for Wine Blast Plus subscribers and potential new subscribers, that we have plans to improve the subscriber benefits even further. Some of these we'll be announcing in due course and may involve in-person activities. But a couple of things we can trail beyond more archive going behind the paywall are a tasty new newsletter and delicious recipes and wine matching suggestions going live very soon.
Continuous improvement. That's the phrase, isn't it? Always striving to serve you better and have fun along the way, of course. On which note, back to wine travel. Now, this is a subject close to both our hearts. In fact, the first book you wrote was a visitor guide to the vineyards in Chile, wasn't it?
Yep.
I mean, I think that's how you got into wine,
It was.
wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
And one of my first books was on wine travel in northern Spain. So we've been wine travel champions for quite a while, haven't we?
Yeah, and we've worked with hotel and travel companies over the years as well, because wine travel, I don't know, it's just a great way for people not just to get into wine, like I did, as you said, travelling around the winelands of Chile, but also for wine lovers to enjoy themselves, get to know their favourite producers even better and discover new things. I mean, seeing, people's eyes light up when they're doing this because of wine travel, it's a very special thing.
Now, interestingly, just turning to topical matters, the Michelin Guide recently launched its new grape selection, focusing on wine producers in Burgundy. And listener Andrew Zucker in the US quite rightly asked about this and what its impact might be on wine tourism. The short answer, Andrew, we think not much, probably.
Yeah, it's a funny one. To my mind, Michelin is about recommending restaurants you want to visit, right? Worth the detour in your car journey, as it were. That's the idea. So there's a travel or visiting element baked into the concept as far as I'm concerned. But this new kind of grape selection initiative doesn't seem to be about travel or visiting at all. It seems to be primarily about the wines and the viticulture and winemaking. But I just find it all a little bit baffling. It doesn't.
I mean, yeah, especially when you
tally.
consider that the Michelin Guide owns the Robert Parker Wine Advocate, which covers kind of similar territory. I mean, I don't know, maybe they're thinking that the latter brand is fading and so Michelin will take over. But I'm not convinced this is a particularly compelling way to do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Plus, it seems like there's already pushback from some of the wine producers included in this initial Burgundy rating. Apparently, Arnaud Lachaud in Von Romani have requested they be removed from the rating, given they deliberately don't submit their wines for press reviews of ratings and haven't received Michelin.
I mean, wouldn't it have made much more sense if Michelin had recommended the best wine producers to visit?
100%.
Anyway,
I don't get it.
Interesting tangent, but let's move on and bring in someone who does know all about the best producers and regions to visit, Cindy Marie Harvey. Cindy Marie has been working in wine for 30 odd years and organising and leading wine tours for much of that time. She currently runs Love Wine Food and says her favourite wine regions to visit are Piedmont, where she used to live, as well as the Aeolian Islands, north of Sicily, and Uruguay.
Now, we'll come on to some of our favourites in a bit, but you asked Cindy Marie how she's seen wine travel evolve over the years and what the current trends are now.
I think it's been a fascinating sort of trajectory for wine travel. When I very first started, there were very few people who would have a specific cellar door. They would see people, but there wasn't anyone standing there waiting for them. The New World definitely have been ahead of the curve on restaurants. I mean, I think we've all been to a million wonderful ones in certainly South Africa and New Zealand. I mean, just amazing restaurants, to the point that they are businesses within their own right. They just happen to be on a vineyard. So people go there. They're not going to a vineyard that just happens to be on a vineyard. When I first went to Chile back in 1997, the wines of Chile map, I think, had 5 different regions on it. Of course, now that's expanded Atacama right down to Chiloé in the south. And with that has come tourism, not only from outside the rest of South America, but also within its own country. And I think going ahead, wine has to be a bit more inclusive. So it's not just, it's an experience. I hate that word, but it is true. So when people come to you, they may want to be doing, I don't know, going for a little self-guided walk around a vineyard. They don't want to be talked at. They don't want to be lectured. Maybe they feel they don't understand enough. So it's a good way of getting people in. So look at what you have on your premises. Don't make it too fake. Don't make it all kind of like, oh, we can send you up in a hot air balloon. Just do something that fits with your philosophy. And that may even be cooking. It may coming in and just doing cooking with a couple of people, 3 people, whatever. So I think the world of wine tourism is just going to continue to grow as it works what works best. What else goes with wine? I mean, opera and wine, brilliant. Golf and wine, equally brilliant. Marathons, well, Marathon de Manoc, you guys know very well. So anything that takes people into it with another interest will mean that they'll feel comfortable in the world of wine and they'll expand into it. So something that brings a little bit extra.
So could you recommend some wine destinations for a range of interests? So say somebody who's really super keen, somebody who has medium interest, and then someone who's sort of less serious about it all.
I mean, I think if you are the super keen, or sort of like my inner geek would be, I think you need to be going to a region that requires a bit of focus. So thinking of fragmentation. So go to Burgundy, because you can really dig deep and look into the terroir between one row and another. Go to Etna, same reasoning. I think if you're middle range, you want to go somewhere where there is a diversity of grape varieties, because you don't want to be doing all of the same thing. So, for example, Südtirol, Alto Adige, that would get my vote, because you have everything from sparklings to world-class Pinot Biancos through to some beautiful reds and even some amazing sweet Moscato Rosa. So that's the thing. I think for people who are either just coming into wine or maybe just want a bit more of a relax and a bit more fun, go somewhere pretty, go somewhere where you can actually enjoy, have a late start, get up. And to be honest, although I'm not a big Prosecco fan, Prosecco ticks a lot of those boxes. It's exquisitely pretty. There's some great hotels, some lovely restaurants. It's fun if you like drinking it. It's great fun. And yeah, I think it's UNESCO. It's been approved by UNESCO as World Heritage. How gorgeous does it have to be? So you don't want to be looking at too many barrels. You don't want to be looking at too much stainless steel. You just want to be having fun and drinking some nice wine.
Now, Prosecco's also quite warm, I seem to remember, because I got there and my case didn't arrive for 3 days.
Oh, no.
And then I came home. So that was a sweaty time. And what about some regions or places that we could maybe class as hidden gems, places off the mainstream radar that you would particularly flag up as good to visit?
I think there's several. I mean, one that comes to mind definitely would be Slovenia. We took sort of 3 groups of people to Slovenia last year, but I went there first in 1998. And I think most people just know, well, actually, a lot of people don't even know where it is. They think it might be Slovakia, that just the name itself confuses. But there are unbelievable wines, both white and red. Ljubljana, obviously, as a city to stay in, is stunning. And then over to Brada up in the hills, it's right on the border with Italy. So if you love Italy and you love that kind of northeast part, you're going to love Slovenia. It's so green. The food is unbelievable. I have to say the food scene in Slovenia is phenomenal. I'd also think maybe look at Aosta, staying in Italy, smallest Italian region, right up on the borders. So you've got mountains all around you, but the white wines there absolutely blew my mind. And it's very pretty. And because it's mainly known for skiing, if you're going out of season, then it's lovely because there's actually not that many tourists around. So that would definitely also be on my list. Other than that, depends. I mentioned earlier the Aeolian Islands, and I think so many people go to Sicily, but they know they're going to go to Palermo, they know they're going to go to Catania or whatever. They know they're going to do Etna. But actually taking that little ferry just across that archipelago and you go down, it's relaxed. The life is a different style. The wines are lovely. They're never going to be mega world class, but you can have a great time and eat some good food. So yeah, look at things a little bit outside of the normal.
And how is it best to plan a great wine trip? You know, is it best to start with the wines you love, or the region you love, or your budget, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's a bit like a toppling tower of Jenga. You don't think it's ever going to come together, and then it suddenly does because you take one out and it all falls down, so you start again. So start with what is important to you. Very often I would say is, well, do you want to discover something new, or do you want to go somewhere where you know you're going to like the wine? That's the kind of premise to start with. Then I would say, what is important? So if you are happy to go and stay in a tree hut in a vineyard in the middle of Sussex, wonderful. If you're that person who goes, no, I need my lovely sort of wonderful bed in a 5-star hotel with a very helpful concierge called Giuseppe who will do everything for me. So yeah, think about what's important to you before you even start thinking about the wine thing, because the wine will just be one small part of your holiday. So once you've got all of those in place, then you can start looking around and saying, well, do I want to taste mainly red? Do I want to taste mainly white? Do I want to go to Italy? Do I want to go to Virginia? Do I want to go to Texas? Anywhere. So there are so many elements to bring into it as to what's important. The only one thing I would say, never try to cram too much in. That is the one thing that anyone who does their own wine tour will always fall flat of. I'm here, I've got to do it. And you will end up drinking too much, not appreciating the last 2 wines, and basically wanting to lie down in a darkened room somewhere. So yeah, that would be my one advice.
That's a really, really good tip. And what are the pros and cons of, you are a specialist tour operator, what are the pros and cons of going with a specialist tour operator like you versus the DIY approach where you're setting it up for yourself?
I think they both have their places. It's not that one is better than the other. I think it's just the majority of people who come on my tours, the first thing they will always ever say is, I don't do group travel. And then we have 98.7 repeat business. So they obviously discover they do group travel. If we are looking at going to places that are not usually open, I think that's one of the reasons for going with a specialist, because if you are a very important wine producer, you want to have who's walking through your door pre-validated, so they know they can trust me after 30 years. If, however, you like the more flexible approach, then doing it yourself is equally just as possible. There are a lot of cellar doors out there now, people who, even ones you can just rock up with. In Europe, it's still always better to have an appointment, but certainly in the New World, there are lots of, cellar doors, be it Australia, America. You can just come along, get on your bike and go. So it's not this one or best or the other. About one thing I think definitely is best is the whole point of having a driver who takes you around, because nobody wants to be the designated driver. I was just about to ask you that. I was thinking, well, how do you get over that issue of, not wanting to, you want to try the wines, but you obviously can't drive afterwards. Yeah. I mean, the thing is that most vineyards rather, at least are in beautiful places, but they're not always the easiest to get to with public transport. So I would say definitely if you are doing it on yourself, then talk to your hotel and actually therefore be a responsible tourist and put some money back into the local economy by hiring yourself a private driver for the day. You'll enjoy it so much more. You'll still be talking to your partner at the other end because neither one of you has had to be designated driver. And it makes the whole economy go round. So yeah, that would be my advice. If you're going to do it, get a driver. And if it's not a uniquely wine-focused trip, if not everyone travelling is a wine buff. Do we know any of them? Where we're all wine buffs, aren't we? But where might be the best places to go to cater for different interests and activities on a trip where you want to include wine? Yeah, I mean, we did a lovely one for a family, which was in Tuscany, and we just basically took over an entire village for the whole extended family. And we had in, obviously, nannies for the children, so the adults could go out for the day, and we arranged them. The children had the pool, everyone was happy. And then they went off and did, various touristy things like Siena or whatever. I also think Lisbon is actually a good one, because Lisbon is central. You can get to vineyards very quickly, but it means there's a lot for everyone to do. There's the essential retail therapy, which is what everyone seems to want. But yeah, depending on if you have a mixed bag of people, there's lots of things that you can do. Not wine every day. It can be wine related, or it can be no wine at all. And I think when people see what they want to achieve, just be honest and say, right, I actually only want to go to one winery in that region, and then I'm happy, and I'll drink the wines at the meals. And you can choose lots of other things for people to do.
I think that's a really good point. When it comes to wine travel, you should think of wine as an important part of the trip, but only one element. You know, trips always bigger than that. You've got to think about the actual travel, the accommodation, the food, your travelling companions, the budget, you know, lots of other things beyond wine. Yeah,
at the same time, it's not trying to cram too much in. That is quality advice. I mean, we're guilty, definitely, of trying to do that. It's such a hard balance to get right, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're excited about doing these things, but there is a limit to what you can do. I mean, I remember one trip to Spain where my notebook just ends halfway through the trip. I was done. I was exhausted. I was just absolutely out on my feet. So I think it's better definitely to err on the side of not overdoing things. Then you can always sort of backfill. You can do more. And also that tip about hiring a driver if you're doing it DIY.
Yeah, that is so important. Yeah. Right, so I think what we're going to do is take a breath, then come back with some of our personal recommendations and thoughts on this fabulous topic. To recap so far, wine travel is booming, and we're here to give you the inside steer on how to do it right and get the most out of it, from hiring drivers to not overdoing things and even lifting the lid on the hidden gem destinations.
Now, Cindy Marie has given us some fantastic insights and suggestions so far, with more to come. But what about our 2 cents, particularly on where to go, perhaps in addition to Cindy Marie's brilliant suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I think first thing we'd say is start with what's important to you and then do your research. You know, some regions just make for a fabulous visit, but each region is different. And so you need to work out what's going to work for you, as it were. And my advice would be to think just as much about the things to do that aren't wine as the things that are wine-centric, if that makes sense.
Yeah, very good point. So shall we just run through a few of our personal favourites? I'm going to start with Sherry Country, where I took you for a significant birthday not that long ago. It's amazing, particularly in spring and autumn, because summer can be really quite hot, but just delicious food, beautiful countryside, so much to see and do around the likes of, you know, Seville, where do we go, Jerez, Sanlúcar and Cadiz.
It was so much fun, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I'll go straight in with Santorini, where we've been a few times, including for a wedding anniversary when we stayed in Ia. And it's a stunning island with sensational restaurants and then so many great wineries to visit, farming these ancient vines in barren, rocky, windswept landscapes. I mean, the big irony is that vineyards are being lost to tourism infrastructure, so it's hard to get the balance right. Being the right kind of tourist is the way to go. And there are so many other wonderful Mediterranean islands you can visit from a wine perspective, aren't there?
So many. Now, there are a fair few very obvious global wine tourism hotspots, like Napa Valley in California, or Stellenbosch in South Africa, or the stunning Douro Valley, all of which are well worth visiting. But the more obvious one that I'd vote for would be Rioja. Staying in Haro or nearby, visiting the likes of López de Heredia or La Rioja Alta, popping into the Dinastia Vivanco Wine Museum, checking out Frank Gehry's Marqués de Riscal Hotel, or Santiago Calatrava's Isios, the San Millán monasteries, even the Batalla de Vino, where you get soaked in wine. So many things to...
Yeah, I mean, there are so many other places as well in Spain you can go, aren't there? You know, Rias Baixas, and all over Galicia you can find hidden gems and great seafood. And Catalonia is wonderful, from Priorat to Terra Alta and the Costa Brava, including over to Banyuls and Collioure in French territory.
Such a gorgeous part of the world, isn't it?
Yeah. But I think for my ultimate obvious one, I'd be between Burgundy and Tuscany.
That's two. Two ultimates, obvious ones. But, you know.
I said I'd be between Burgundy
Okay,
and
fine.
Tuscany.
Having your cake and eating
well, Cindy Marie mentioned Burgundy, didn't she?
Yeah.
I mean, Beaune is the town every wine lover just has to visit. The smell of wine virtually seeps up through the cobblestones. And then Tuscany, the food, the landscape, the people, the lifestyle.
Yeah, and I suppose Saint-Emilion would be another more obvious one to throw in the mix,
I guess.
And you can check out, if you're there, things like the Cité du Vin, the Darwin development and the famous quays in Bordeaux City. Looking further afield, though, because I think it's slightly more interesting to go for the less obvious, slightly more esoteric ones, I'd put in a vote for the Elqui Valley in Chile.
Yeah.
Elqui, one of my favourite places to get away while I lived in Chile. It's just so unbelievably tranquil. I mean, you have never seen stars like you see in Elqui. There's also, pisco and poetry to keep you going too.
Sounds like a pretty potent mix, doesn't it?
It is.
I think my far-flung option would be either Tasmania, such exciting wines, and some really cool things to see too, like the Mona Museum, the Bonnarong Wildlife Sanctuary, and tons of top wineries.
I'd love to go there.
Or Western Australia. Margaret River is just the most awesome place to visit and taste and eat and surf if you can, and chill out.
Yeah, it's so cool.
But you can then also head over to Pemberton or Great Southern.
Yeah, it's a great trip to Western Australia. I mean, there's so many places in Australia, full stop, aren't there? From Yarra Valley to McLaren Vale to the Adelaide Hills to Barossa. And then, you shouldn't overlook Central Otago in New Zealand, for example. Bungee jumping and wine. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Maybe thinking along those lines, the adventurous sort of theme. Yeah. Georgia is really cool.
Very cool.
We talked about that on the pod a bit for the history. Also, somewhere I've been, Baja California in Mexico is a bit different and really cool.
I mean, the problem is we could just keep going on forever, couldn't we? There are so many good places to visit from a wine point of view. But I will just finish by mentioning Alsace, somewhere that can get overlooked, but is so chocolate box pretty and with really intriguing wines. And then also something that Cindy Marie touched on, which is English and Welsh vineyards, which in the last 5 to 10 years have done great work on the wine tourism front. Kent, Essex, Sussex, Hampshire, Dorset, Cornwall, Wales, Yorkshire. I mean, you can go and visit excellent vineyards all over with increasingly good restaurants, hotels, activities. So they're all well worth checking out.
Yeah, I mean, so much of wine tourism is about that infrastructure, isn't it? Having good restaurants, having good hotels. It's good. But you need that in order to be able to do it. Sometimes wine trails as well. And I think England and Wales is doing really well there. So we are actually going to do an episode focused on UK wine travel soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. And in topical news on that front, we hear Chapeldown in Kent are launching a Magnum festival. They definitely sold me on that one. Just putting Magnum in the title, I'm there. I'm sold. They're going to have obviously big tunes,
T-shirts.
I'm in for merch, everything. Big bottles as well. So it sounds like fun.
Yeah, indeed. Now we do have more tips and thoughts to share, plus that anonymous source input. But before that, I think we should hear again from Cindy Marie. And I asked her if there were any wine events or festivals around the world that she'd particularly flag up as being worth experiencing.
There's quite a few. I mean, I like the more localized ones. There's one called Rada in Bicchieri, which is in Rada in Chianti. So it's about, half an hour away from Siena. And they just basically, the whole hilltop village gets shut off. You take your glass and you wander around, and all of the producers from around there are there. This being Italy, there'll be lots of salami and lots of cheese and things as well. That's quite a fun one. I think Toast in Martinborough down in New Zealand, that's a great one as well. Mainly because it's surrounded by so many great wineries. And the focus is not just wine, it's lots of live music. So it's a good festival thing to do. The one that's still on my list that I haven't actually done yet, which is the International Pinot Noir celebration. That is... Everyone who I know has gone and said it's absolutely phenomenal. So that would be one that I would say, yes, have a look at it. I still haven't done it, but I really, really want to. But a million ways to do Pinot Noir with salmon. It'll be great. Oh, and of course we've got Fizzfest just on our own doorsteps.
Of course.
I didn't think of that.
Now, say I know I want to go to Rioja or I want to go to Mendoza in Argentina. How do I choose the best producers in a given region?
Assuming you drink that style of wine at home, that would be my first place to start. But if you want to discover new ones, then there's lots of things online. I mean, things like, your guys' reviews of the wines of the year, things like that. Look at lists of people you trust. I tend to find that people coming into the wine world as a consumer go, I don't know where to start. Literally find yourself a journalist or a wine person that talks about wine. Taste the wines they recommend for a couple of weeks. If you find you like them, follow that person. So if you're a consumer coming in, just find somebody whose palate echoes yours. Read what they said about that region. Don't get carried away by all the clickbaits. There's lots of those clickbait articles, and they go the 10 best whatevers. They're not always going to be the best. They're going to be the people who've paid for that to be in that article. And if you're doing certainly Italy, you've got one brilliant book, which is The Wines of Italy, to read. Very easy. But also if you're going on your own, maybe don't plan everything and just go around and talk to the person in the bar in the village in Chassagne-Montrachet, and they'll go, oh, would you like to come to my winery? Or would you like to go to my friend's winery? That doesn't happen that much in Chassagne, admittedly, but it does happen in Harrow, and it does happen in Rioja.
Now, you've talked about getting special access when you're with a specialist tour operator, but what's your advice when it comes to iconic producers that probably everybody wants to visit, people adore their wines, but they only do visits by appointment? You know, how is it best to maximise your chance of getting a visit?
I think the basics of life in general, be humble, be polite, and have good manners. I wouldn't go in all guns blazing saying, I have 12 vintages of your wine in my cellar. You can put that third paragraph down as a kind of, I am serious. If you buy that person's wine from a independent wine merchant, even if they don't have necessarily a big distributor, but someone's bringing it in, ask for an intro so that when you send that email, you're sending it to a person. You're not just saying, hello, I'd like to come to your vineyard.
And when you do visit, what's the best etiquette on that kind of visit and on wine visits in general?
Yeah. I think be aware that you're going to be standing around quite a lot. Don't show that you're too bored. I think that things in wine cellars generally cost a lot of money. Each piece of kit costs them a lot of money. They want to show you that piece of kit. And that could be a filter, it could be a press, it could be a very new stainless steel barrel, a stainless steel vat, it could be a barrel from Stottinger, from Austria, whatever.
Bottling line.
They love
their bottling
they
lines,
do love their
don't they?
bottling lines. I can understand why, you know, they believe things are happening. So I think etiquette generally is just show interest and, you know, make sure, and you're never going to like all the wines. Obviously, you're not going to like all the wines you ever taste, but just taste everything, be open-minded and be respectful of your host who've given their time to you.
And what about advice on how to taste well across a number of days? You know, how do you stay focused, alert, attentive, not look bored, and be able to enjoy a wine trip without fizzling out after the first day?
I think generally make friends with your spittoon is a very good thing. I think a lot of people who are consumers are a bit wary about spitting in public, mainly because we've been taught it's not a terribly nice thing to do. So if you really are worried about that, sit in your bath at home and try and aim for the taps. Literally just spit water at the taps. But spitting, obviously not at the table over lunch or whatever, but spitting during tasting is a good way because it really does focus your brain. And it comes back to what I said earlier, try not to fit too much in. I mean, I think two winery visits a day for anyone who is not trade is more than enough if they're done well. This idea of coming in, I'm doing a tasting, I'm going to do 12 wines in half an hour and then I've got an next appointment. No one's going to enjoy that. Not you, not the winemaker, not the person talking to you. So yeah, just know your limits. And then when you get to that restaurant that evening, you are no longer tasting, you're drinking, you're sitting down, you can enjoy it. You want to be able to get to that point, and to get to that point, you need to spit.
Not fall asleep in your
Exactly.
soup. What about practicalities of what to wear or what not to wear?
Well, I would have said that was quite a clear, easy one until this week, because if you're going to be going up and down steps in a cellar, very often they have great big holes in them. If you're standing in an uneven vineyard, wear decent shoes. I don't care if they're fashionable, but wear decent shoes. However, I did this week have a lovely lady who I adore. She can walk in heels that would terrify me. And we walked up a hill in Piemonte, and she did it far better than I did in flats. I mean, it's so know your own limits, but I would say generally the most key thing would be comfortable footwear.
And cold, because I get cold, and I think cellars can be surprisingly cold, can't they?
Absolutely.
Even though you're in a hot country.
Yeah. And especially because you're going into the majority ones now that are actually built back into cliffs or built under earth or whatever. And so they're actually all year round. So a wrap is always a good idea. So even if you don't want to take like a full coat, but just something to throw around your shoulders is always a decent idea.
How do you avoid what I think it's Professor Charles Spence calls the Provençal rosé effect? That thing of loving a wine when you're travelling, buying lots of it, and then it's sort of falling flat when you get home and realising it's not as great as you thought it was.
Yeah, I think that comes back to the whole thing of, like for a meal, food is only a small part of a meal. It's actually the whole atmosphere of being out at a restaurant and the service and everything else. The same goes for wine. So, when you were having that lovely Provençal rosé overlooking, the wonderful glittering blue sea, it's not going to taste the same in Chelmsford on a wet Tuesday evening. So, two ways you could do it. You can either try and recreate where you had it at home. Good luck with that. Not sure how you do that, but apparently you're supposed to put your flip-flops on and get your shorts on and give it a go. Alternatively, I would just say think about where you are. So if you are drinking a cold, chilled wine in a really hot country, it is going to taste very different. If you are in a really cold day and you've got a lovely big red, you're looking forward to that anyway. So think about how you drink wine at home before you go crazy. And if you are really convinced, just buy 2 bottles. Don't go mad. Bring that home. Have it on that wet February evening. And then you can always order some for delivery. And
you've got your 2 bottles potentially, but what about tips for buying in general when you're on a wine trip and getting it home? Particularly if the producer, say, doesn't have an importer in your home country, so you can't sort of just buy it at home.
Yeah, it's a bit of a difficult one because you always do want to be able to enjoy and share with your friends ones that you've had while you were away. Sadly, increasingly, due to the chaos of customs deliveries of wines coming into the UK, there are quite a lot of wine estates who they will deliver to Kathmandu, but they won't deliver to the UK because of the paperwork that's now requested. So I would say 2 things. Either focus on buying a couple of very nice bottles while you're there and take those flat pack bubble wrap things.
That you can just stick in your suitcase.
Yeah, stick in a suitcase and go with it. Or invest in a Vanguard valise, which I love. There's a suitcase which takes 12 bottles of champagne, or 12 bottles of wine, but it's fitted for champagne. It's foam inside. There's even a room for a little bit of clothes if you want to just take 1 suitcase. And therefore you can bring home something really interesting. It's brilliant if you're doing sustainable travel and going by train, because on the Eurostar you just drag it along behind you. And they're not cheap, but they are worth their weight in gold, literally, if you want to bring back some interesting stuff.
And just thinking about sustainable travel, how can people travel as sustainably as possible?
Well, I think there's several ways of looking at it. When you're there, perhaps just base yourself in one place. Don't suddenly keep hopping away all the way around. For example, we did the Veneto a couple of weeks ago and stayed in Verona, but every day was dramatically different. We went to the mountains in Trentino. We went out to Lake Garda. We went up to the valleys of Valpolicella. Everything was very different from one base. And there are quite a few places you can do that. My other big thing, obviously, would be take the train. If you can humanely take the train, please do. Once you get to Paris, it's easy because there are so many now new sleeper trains that you can take and go all over Europe. So yeah, take the train.
Any other insider tips on how to get the most out of wine travel?
Be open-minded. Be prepared to like that rosé, having avowed all your life you hate rosé. Be prepared to try something completely different, and listen to the winemakers when they're chattering away about what brought them into it. There's all kinds of wonderful stories. It's never just about the taste of the wine. It's about the people and it's about the relationships. And that's the thing that people remember. I mean, doing wine tourism is a great way of building brand, for want of a better word, loyalty. But it's the human aspect that people remember, not the actual liquid in the glass.
And just looking at it from the other side, what would your advice for wine producers be when it comes to wine tourism?
Decide why you want to do it. If you're a small independent winery who can't afford to have, the girls in the pretty red jackets standing all day at the cellar door. Why do you want people to come and taste your wine? Because as a winemaker, you have to go to so many trade fairs around the world. Your time is limited because otherwise at a certain point you have to be in the vineyards and you have to be making wine. So I would say realize that not everyone who comes to see you is looking for the same experience. So if that means making sure they're pre-validated, if you like, that they already drink your wine or that they have a level of wine knowledge. It's not about wine snobbery, it's about an interest level. There is no point sending somebody to a top producer if they're never going to drink that wine. What's the point of being there just to say tick box they've done it? So as producers, I would say focus on who you want to come and see you, and don't be afraid to say no. Never. That's the problem with so many Italians. They don't like saying no because they want to be so welcoming, and then they want to do. Some people, especially the French, want to do the same visit. So, but that's fine if you're only doing one cellar. If you're doing 8 cellars in a week, you don't want to see another barrel. You don't want... Talk to me about something else. Talk to me about what makes you special. So if producers just need to work to understand what they need to offer. And that may be different things to different people.
And how do you see the future of wine travel?
Well, it's exploded, hasn't it? I mean, it really, from where I started, you know, people, I would regularly be sending requests and people going, sorry, why are you coming to see us again? You know, there wasn't that concept of it. I mean, it's in, you know, Napa, it's been there for a long time, very much, you know, you go along the Silverado and you come out of one gate and you go into the other. But there are so many new regions and sub-regions now that it's only going to explode even further. I mean, I think Bulgaria and Romania are both of them trying to really promote it. I know that Slovenia definitely is. Croatia, obviously, all of that kind of area that people perhaps don't know very much. And also, given the price of wines at the top end, having some actually what I would call Tuesday night wines to taste is actually quite a nice thing. So yeah, I think it is going to just get bigger. And especially in the UK. I mean, here we're surrounded, aren't we, by vineyards, and people are... One good thing that came out of COVID, people discovered the vineyards on the doorstep.
Cindy Marie, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you
pleasure.
so much.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy.
Wine tourism really is exploding, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
And all over the place too, which is why it's hard to just recommend a few places to visit. Everyone's developing their offering, and you know, it's exciting. Time was, of course, you know, the angry French wine dude would threaten you with a shotgun if you tried to sample his wines. Now it's sort of arms open, you know, tractor rides for fun, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing is so much more than just the taste and buy model. You know, producers are realizing they need to offer different things. Not all necessarily highbrow, and that also goes beyond the individual producers to more generic or regional activities like festivals and events. And I mean, Cindy Marie mentioned the Marathon du Médoc, which we've done and would highly recommend. I think I would highly recommend it.
The overall experience.
I mean, when else
Your
do you see
particular run.
When else do you see Pauillac throbbing with thousands of fancy dress runners singing and dancing?
Yes,
but there are so many more, aren't there?
Yeah, you've got to focus on the fun aspects rather than the grueling aspects of a marathon in 30 degrees,
30
whatever.
degree
But you know,
heat.
the experience, the all-round experience, was amazing, wasn't it? And
It was.
I think this is one great way into wine travel. If you like this kind of thing, you know, it could be the Battaglia del Vino in Haro, where everyone throws wine at each other, or it could be the Harvest Festival in Mendoza, in Argentina. There are, thinking about it, actually quite a few wine runs if you're into running beyond the Marathon du Médoc, which you've mentioned. The Bacchus Half. Is it Denbies in Surrey, which we've also done? There are runs in Wachau in Austria, Sancerre, which you've done, haven't you?
Well, I didn't actually do the run. I was there to watch.
Ah, okay. I thought you told me you'd done the run.
No.
Honestly.
I was going to, but
I
you know,
see.
injury
That's the
and
way
all
it
that.
works. So it
sort
was
of
an
thing.
injury, was it? Okay. There's one in Beaune, Brunello, Brazil. It's a Barbaresco and White Truffle Eco Marathon,
Oh,
apparently.
I like the sound of that.
Oh, I love the sound of that.
Does eco marathon mean we narrow it, shorten it down a bit?
Maybe, whatever. I mean, I won't go past the first truffle. That's me done. There's runs in Douro, in Marsala, Hunter Valley, Santa Emilia, Willamette, Fredericksburg in Texas. There's the Lanzarote wine run.
Wow.
I really want to do that. I mean, the Canaries are, of course, another great wine place to visit.
Of course.
As is Madeira. We've got to stop. But there's even, and I want to finish on this, an underground 10K that goes around the vast cellars in the Krikova winery in Moldova. And apparently headlamps are de rigueur for that one. Am I selling that one?
There are so many events around the wine world.
that's true.
I think we'll just put a list on our show notes, won't we?
Let's do that.
And if you guys have any cool suggestions, please do let us know and we'll add them to the list. But a couple of top ones to mention would be Paired in Margaret River, Fizz Fest in Hampshire, a little closer to home, the Jazz Festival at Château L'Hospitalet in Languedoc, and Sula Fest in Nashik, India, which looks mad.
It does, doesn't it? It looks so fun. One other thing we did want to touch on was advice in terms of the before, during and after a wine visit. I know Cindy Marie mentioned this, but what we'd say is try to set up visits as early as possible. Email as far in advance as you can, giving as much information as you can and being as flexible as you can. And do your research, as we've said. Maybe talk to their importer as well, if it helps.
So during the visit, I loved Cindy Marie's advice to be open-minded and focus on the people as much as the wines, which you can probably taste later or elsewhere anyway. Listen to what those producers have to say, allow plenty of time so you're not rushing off, dress appropriately, comfy shoes. You also may be thrown around in a muddy jeep on a vineyard visit or find yourself in a freezing cold cellar. I've been there too often. So practical kit and outdoor stuff. I mean, essentially you're visiting a farm, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, Rachel Signer, who we chatted to in our Natural Wine Pod recently, had a few recommendations in her book, including learning a few key phrases in the local language, which always shows willing and goes down well. Ask if there's a fee to visit, and if not, maybe bring a small gift from your home region, like jam or chocolate or something like that. Take photos, but ask permission to post on social media, which is usually not a problem, but again, it's respectful. But of course, don't spend all your time head down over your device, she says. She says, be present, is her advice.
Yeah, good tips. If you like a wine you've tasted, we'd say buying the odd bottle or two where feasible is always appreciated, of course. And then afterwards, make sure to write a personal thank you with perhaps a comment on what impressed you the most. If you do post on socials, tag them, tag the producer. That could be a nice way of keeping in touch too.
And make friends with your spittoon. I did love that comment by Cindy Marie. Thinking about it, I think you did a how-to video on spitting back in the day, didn't you? You did. But maybe that's one to dredge up from our. Maybe that's one to dredge up from our YouTube archive for the show notes.
Oh, if you really need a laugh, yes, yeah. So just before we finish, we did, as mentioned, discreetly seek advice from a wine producer who will remain nameless, but let's say is one of those wine estates that everyone wants to visit, but isn't normally open to the public. And we asked said producer how to go about trying to secure a visit.
Yeah, and the advice was, and this is more or less verbatim, to still make contact, to ask the question. Be prepared for a no, but it's always worth a try. To increase the probability of a yes, it's advisable to have a story or reason for visiting beyond just wanting to taste the wines, like a significant anniversary or some personal connection to the estate. Give them a reason to say yes. But remember, they'll be going out of their way to accommodate you, often with staff or principals who are busy and should be elsewhere. The advice is very much to always send an email rather than call, and definitely don't just turn up on the day hoping for an exception.
The inside steer. There you go. So hopefully this has been interesting and useful. And I also hope we've answered most of your questions, Ian. Wine travel is a fascinating subject right now and an aspect of the wine world that is fast evolving. Michelin might not be covering it, but we are. So stay tuned as we go travelling with our corkscrew.
Yes, thank you to Cindy Marie Harvey, to our anonymous source, and to Ian for the question. Huge thanks to you for tuning in and spending time with us. We really appreciate it. This is the end of season 7, but stay tuned, not just for season 8, which is coming packed with treats, but also those archive tasters, the new subscription benefits, and the brand refresh. It's all happening in the world of Wine Blast. So here's raising a glass and cheers.